finally, a source of raw, real, and honest information on healthcare issues that matter most. Welcome to BS Free MD. From the latest medical information to how to stay sane as a doctor or a patient, no subject is taboo, no BS is allowed. Now, let's welcome your hosts, Doctors May and Tim Hindmarsh.
This week we have a really interesting guest with a great story. He is super engaging guy. His name is John Matlander. Really quite a tale. Started as an X-ray tech and a CT tech on Staten Island in New York City, and now he's running for Congress. So we are going to go through how that happened. First, May has a message for us.
I do. I'm the message reader, I guess, instead of you. Kind of an honor. Anyway, our sponsor this week is Michael L. Relvis from MR Insurance, a small business that helps physicians with their disability insurance needs. He is a CFP professional and insurance agent committed to helping physicians nationwide with their term life and disability insurance needs. He provides an objective, transparent, and education-focused process that aims to help physicians make prudent decisions and avoid overcomplicating things. He exclusively offers own occupation disability insurance policies for residents, fellows, and attending physicians. We really like Michael, and we know he's got your best interest at heart when it comes to disability insurance. We know he'd be happy to help you with whatever your insurance needs are, and you can find him at bsfreemd.com/mrinsurance or contact him. Call him at 1-800-817-4522.
Yes. Be adequately insured, especially when you're poor and you're at the beginning of your career. No question about that. All right, we're going to dive right in with John Matlander. You're going to really enjoy this. Well, May and I are super excited to be back with you all, and we have an amazing guest, John Matland. John is a radio host for TNT, and it is an interesting online talk radio presence. And I met him being on his show, and I was like, this guy has a little bit of an interesting backstory that, has a lot to do with what's gone on in the last 2 years and a lot to do with healthcare. And it's a really cool story. And we can't wait to get into this. John, welcome to BS Free MD.
Thank you for having me.
Outstanding. So, as I understand, you were a healthcare worker, a X-ray and CT technologist.
Correct.
In New York City during the entire, blow up of COVID, March, April, May, when things were really dire. Can you explain to us what it was like actually, kind of doing that job and seeing this emerging virus and then going, oh my God, this is terrible.
Yeah. I suffered from the PSYOP that we all did, and I'll explain how we get to that portion of it. But every morning, we would joke around the hospital like, oh, it's only a matter of time before it gets here. And everyone's like, oh, stop, it's never going to get here. And then people would say that. And then March came around and, everyone was starting to get worried that it's going to happen. Then we found out one person in the hospital was admitted with it. And then it was 2 people. And I said, oh, it's here. I said, it's going to go bananas soon. And that soon was just hours. Within a couple of days, 2 days, 3 days, we had tons of people, tons of suspected people. They didn't know how to test people yet. And you turn on the TV, the doom and gloom news stations, and you're looking at how many people are infected that they know of, it's in which country, and we're all going to die. So I would go to work and I'm like, oh dear God, this is the day. I'm going to get it. I'm going to be driving to work and I'm going to start the cough and then I'm going to be dead by night. And you have to understand, it was normal to think like this. Not only was the TV showing it, I would go to work and people were dying at crazy rates. And I mean, I would talk to these people and within 6 hours, they were going to the morgue. And I'm like, this virus is completely crazy. even when they come in, they're lethargic, they have a cough, and it's just hours later they're on a vent, and then they die, and I couldn't understand it. And as time went by, you started to see that the vents stopped being used as much. And I mean seriously as much. So when I say that, there was one point during April that my entire hospital, including the recovery room for the OR, was turned into an ICU, and everyone was vented. Everyone. And then you flash forward to the summer. Would say in the summer of 2020, by August, I think I might have seen 3 people get vented until I was fired. It was the least amount of vents that I've ever seen in my life out of my whole entire 15 years in that hospital.
And could you explain? Is that because the things were changing there, and they at that point, I'm trying to remember, knew that it was more harmful at that point to be using them, or it wasn't because you ran out, they didn't have access to them. It was because things were changing and they realized it was actually more harmful for venting at that point, right?
Correct. So they were treating like everything was acute respiratory distress syndrome, and it wasn't. So when pulse oxes dropped that low, their first training that kicks in is we have to vent because it matches ARDS, but it really wasn't. It was normal that people had an 86 or an 87 pulse ox, and that was it. But then they started going, oh, well, let's give, I heard this from Nurse Erin that everyone's heard of from Instagram that did the undercover studies at Elmhurst. They in Florida, they were still doing it up until, as far as my understanding, September, October. People were coming in during the Delta wave, and they would be like, oh, you have an 80, you have an 88 or an 87 pulse ox. Let's give you a sedative and let's calm you down. On top of the fact that this person is already low on oxygen, struggling to breathe. And, there was stories, and I mean, I didn't see this at my place. I'm just saying stories that came out of Florida, that people were being forced that wanted to sign a DNI, which is do not intubate. And they would say, well, you can't sign that without signing the DNR. And they were like, no. Resuscitation is different than intubation. And, keeping families at it. This is just some really dark times in healthcare across the board, whether it was intentional or not.
Well, and that's the hard part. I think you can connect the dots and go, this was terrible. I know May and I have spoke out several times about the actually our episode that dropped today, the 24th of February, when we're recording this, is with Kirk and Kim Milhone, and how he was just berated by the Hawaiian Medical Board because he got a complaint from some random person because he starts a free clinic through his church where he's a pastor. Okay, the guy is a pediatric cardiologist with a PhD in cardiac physiology. Mm-hmm. He has a free clinic. He sees COVID patients. He starts doling out ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. I mean, this is a free clinic. It's like all they had. This is even before the vaccine. And he goes on a podcast to debate this with the, I think it was the Maui County Medical Board, who had a guy that was really, into science and just discussing all of the options. And they go after his license. They go after his license for just trying to help people for free. And the cowardice in healthcare. I blame my own profession for so much of this. If doctors would have stood up really early and said, no, we got to try everything, but it wasn't. It was chicken shit city, man. And that just makes me nuts. Yeah.
I mean, I could attest to that because, we would talk to the radiologists, we would talk to the surgeons. And I remember I was talking to a PA that was doing surgery. He was closing up suture. The doctor was there. There was a couple nurses in the OR. And they started bringing up when the shot was, well, they might make it mandatory. What are we going to do? And everyone's like, I don't want this. I've already had COVID. I don't want it. This medically makes no sense. But what am I going to do? I'm going to get it. I don't want to lose my job. And then we were talking around the room, and they got to me, and they were like, you're going to get it in the end, aren't you? And I was like, I'm not getting it. There's no chance, no way I'm going to get it. And like, you're lying. But I clearly wasn't. And a lot of those people, again, kept saying that there was no reason to do this, but they gave in. And I mean, that's between them and, the job. I get it. A lot of people need their job, so it's tough for everybody. I can't blame people. It's just a really, if I could use lack of better words, I believe I can curse on this podcast. It's a shitty
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, no, you're
Yes.
free to
Yeah.
say whatever you want.
So you at this point are talking about the vaccine that's coming out, getting vaccinated. And had you had COVID by that point? Did you get?
No,
You didn't get it, and you didn't drop dead. That's for sure.
no.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
which is the weirdest part about this is, I walked around, and the first week and a half when it was bad, I had the one mask that I had to reuse for the whole week, and they were like, keep it in a lunch bag on the counter,
Yes, yes.
which I
We
mean,
did that too.
N95 in a lunch bag, like that makes
Yeah.
any sense whatsoever.
Right.
And just put a mask on top of it. Now I was crazed. I was like, again, I thought I was going to get it. I thought I was going to bring it home. I was going to kill my fiance's grandfather. Like I was scared of all of this. So I would wear like 4 masks stapled together. I would clean everything with Sani wipes. Everyone thought I was the craziest person in the world. I said, better safe than sorry. Probably going to get it anyway. And again, as things came down and you learn more, it's amazing that when I did eventually get COVID, which was in December that just passed, which was probably Omicron,
Mm-hmm.
I wondered how I didn't get it all the other times. I worked with people that were positive, ate at the same table next to them as they were hacking. And I remember there was this one specific time I was going to the Bahamas the next day, and I was like, okay, I got my PCR test. I'm all good. I don't want to get stuck in a foreign country. I'm not scared of COVID at this point. This was past my I'm worried about COVID thing. I was very awake at this point. I was at the point where, why the hell are you sitting next to me at the lunch table hacking? I'm leaving the damn country. And the girl goes, I think I might have COVID. And I was like, that's not funny. It's just not funny. And
Right.
she's like, no, I'm serious. I'm really tired and I can't stop hacking away. So when I'm now, it's Easter Sunday in the Bahamas, and I have to get my antigen test so I could get back on the plane the following day or a
Mm-hmm.
day and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'm going to test positive. I'm going to get stuck in a foreign country. It's going to happen. And then it didn't happen. And that was the third time I was like fully exposed. And the other time was another coworker and a friend at a party, like fully exposed, nothing.
I'm only laughing along with you because we've lived through those exact same fears and thoughts right from the beginning. We were 2/3 of the way through reading The Great Influenza. If you haven't read it, it's an amazing
Is his
book.
name John Barry?
Yes, and
That
it's
is an
very,
amazing
very
book.
thick, so we recommend the audio version. But we were driving to work, commuting together, listening to it, and we were 2/3 of the way through it. It talks about the 1918 flu pandemic, and so it was very frightening for us because back then, no antibiotics. People were literally the same thing. They would catch it, and all of a sudden, within 6 hours, they would drop dead in front of their loved ones. And we thought, oh crap, like this is what's going to be happening again. And so it was the same thing. Initially, it was like, don't touch the groceries. I locked my 85-year-old dad down. Don't go out. Don't breathe. It was the same thing. And so nobody knew what was happening.
Yeah.
And people were doing telehealths and they're freaking out to the point where we had limited PPE. We had to get that at first we blew through N95s. It was just every single patient we had to don and doff and change, and this 20-step process. Then it went the other extreme where we got one because we were running out and put it in a little paper sack, exactly like you said, in a lunch
Yep.
bag. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
and right down to I had to leave the country with my father, and Tim had COVID.
I brought COVID home
brought it home.
I brought it home from Sturgis. So
Tim, how dare you?
I know.
And then we literally, he comes
Exactly.
home and we were literally taking my dad to Canada the next day, and he goes, I don't feel good. And I'm like, you loser. I knew it was COVID, and he was in denial. And sure enough, we went in for our test to get to cross the border, and he came back positive. And then I freaked out the whole time because I knew that I could get into Canada with my dad, but I was worried we would get it there. Then my sister, who is an ICU nurse, would have been exposed, and we would have been breaking the law officially in Canada because we would have been staying with her and blah, blah, blah. We didn't get sick, but I was sure freaked out. So I get all of that, and we've been exactly in your shoes.
Yeah.
It's been nuts.
It's
Yeah.
definitely was a strange, and I say it,
Yeah.
and I'm not embarrassed to say it. During the height of it, during the March April phase, where I was going in and people were just coding, it was just code blue, and then my hospital started to play. Well, when we discharge somebody, we'll play "Here Comes the Sun" over the speakers, and then it would be
Mm.
like the hospital's packed, and you're only playing that twice, like every 2 days. It's not. It's not. It's
That's
not a.
creepy. That's exactly like the Hunger. Have you seen Hunger Games?
I don't remember most of it. It's been a while, but I saw
So
at least
when
part
every
one and
time
two.
someone died in Hunger Games, they'd like play this song and float
That's
the
right.
photo. And I mean, that is just kind of
And
crazy.
y
It just
and
reminds me of that.
yeah, it was absolutely, like, off because it was "Here Comes the Sun," but there if we have so many patients and you're only hearing it
Yeah.
once in a blue moon,
Right.
it's not that good of a feeling because then you're like, "Well, where's everyone else going?" And then you look out the back window, and they had the cryo truck because they made the extension
So
morgue right in the
yes, we
in
saw
the ER
pictures
bay.
of that in the news, and you heard all of that. It was really like that,
So,
right?
did they
Yeah.
play Metallica's "For Whom the Bell
Oh,
Tolls" every time somebody went in the cryo
You
truck?
know, you went there. I was trying not to. I was trying to not do that because
Tim would do that.
nobody gets that when you're a healthcare worker, you have to have a morbid sense a sense of humor. Because we watch the worst stuff happen and we have to deal with that. Where everyone else is like, "Oh, today the paper machine got jammed up and and I'm like, "Well, today I watched a lot of people die." Very
Yeah.
different. So to deal with it, some people go to this dark humor place, and then
Mhm. Mhm.
somebody of course said something very similar, not for whom the bell tolls, but it was "Here Comes the Reaper," like you'd just be
Oh,
sitting
yeah, of
there and
course.
and I was like, "Oh god,
More cowbell.
yes, more cowbell."
Well,
So
it would
yeah,
be playing probably almost continuously. I mean,
I
for a
know.
while.
I
Yeah,
it I
yeah.
know. It was really bad, and then it was not as bad. And that was the point where I was like, "Okay, things are changing now." And I mean, my hospital then all of a sudden became, so we have two hospitals on Staten Island. We have the North, which is the big campus, and we have the South. So they made the North, the psychiatric add-on that they did, they called it the East, and they made that just COVID unit. And where I was became no COVID. So we went from all of this to literally like nothing to do because they didn't have outpatients yet. We weren't
Mhm.
allowed to take in COVID patients. It was weird. It was just so weird. It went from all this to nothing. And I was like, how is this hospital even going to stay open at this point? Like, I could come in and play roller hockey on the fourth floor at this point and nobody would know the difference.
Wow.
Yeah,
Right, because
Yeah,
all elective procedures were being postponed
that's it.
and and that would be yeah.
well, right, and as a radiology tech, you'd have like the elective procedures would be a huge part of what you would do.
Huge, huge.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
No outpatients, nothing.
tell us about patients would come in for a CT for an unrelated problem,
Yeah.
and they would have COVID
Surprise.
lungs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of people completely asymptomatic. Well, not really, because whatever symptoms that brought them in might have had relation to COVID. But if they came in with, say, acute abdomen pain, we would throw them on the CAT scan machine, and I started saying, I'm going to add a little bit more of the claustrophonic angle, see what we see in the bottom of the lung field. And lo and behold, a lot of people had ground glass opacities. So if you look at a CAT scan, normal lungs look a certain way, and the other ones look like you just ground up some glass and just threw it all over the lung tissue. And we would start just sitting at the machine going, "Oh, this person's positive, and I don't have an N95 on because they're not here for that. They don't have a fever. They have nothing that's symptomatic of COVID." So we would think that all is good and all is well. But once the CAT scan was done, we'd come back in with all the PPE, like all of a sudden, like, "Hey, you're all done with your test. Now, why are you dressed like
They're
that?"
looking
I'm not telling you why, but get out of my room.
wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the good news is
Now, were they
your
actually
appendix is fine.
I'm
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, but could that have been how long could that sequela of the ground glass appearance in the lungs last for, even if they weren't contagious?
A
Do you remember,
while.
Tim? Yeah.
It's a
So
while.
right. So it could have been. I mean, they could have not been contagious at that point, but you don't know, and um, you got to take precautions, obviously. So yeah, and right as an X-ray tech or anybody drawing blood or doing especially in imaging, if patients don't know this, you can't reveal anything to patients that you see. It has to be done by a physician.
Oh,
so you're not allowed to
right.
say there is something really
Why
bad.
can't you say? That's right, because you would be practicing medicine without a license. But if I own a plumbing company and I tell someone to take a experimental gene therapy, I'm not.
Oh,
Yes, I am
to be
practicing
employed,
medicine without.
in
Yes,
your yeah.
That's
so
true.
it's crazy. So
I
tell us
could
about the.
I just to deviate, you say that you can't tell people the results, and everybody that ever worked in healthcare always knows the patients get, tell me what you see. I won't tell anybody, and like I'm like I'm not going to tell you. But then the machines, as we got updated, they have flat screen panels on it, and the X-ray just pops up. And in one of the rooms, they used to have a machine for what they call a CR reader, which is the regular cassettes. It wasn't DR; it was halfway there. It was digital, but you still had cassettes. And you still had to develop the cassette. And, the image would pop up on the screen right in front of the patient. And then they'd be like, what do you see? And a lot of times, you don't want to talk. Healthcare x-ray wise, every now and then you get a foreign body case.
Oh, yes, you do.
Oh, yes, you do. And let me tell you, when you have a screen facing a patient and a 12-inch double-ended dildo shows up and they say, so what do you see? And they're looking at the image. It's
You're like,
really,
you tell me what you see.
I am so red in the face. I'm like, I want to just die right now. Somehow, just like smoke bomb, poof, I'm gone. But yeah, that's happened to me.
Because their secret's not a secret anymore.
No. Luckily, that person did not ask a slew of questions, but I was like, I have to turn around and face the patient, and this is on my screen, clear as day.
Yeah, you guys get some good stories. I mean, I always loved hanging out with our friends that are X-ray techs at clinic because they would have great stories, foreign body type stuff. But I even learned our friend told us, she goes, I can figure out who's got fake diamonds and who's not by the way it'll classify. And I'm like, no way. So she's like, check this lady's ring out. It was this big honk of supposed diamond, but it wasn't.
Well, I guarantee you my nipple studs are real.
Anyway,
that's
so yes,
guaranteed.
X-ray techs see a lot, but are not usually allowed to disclose much. But I do know sometimes people go, well, you can take a peek and broken bones and so forth. You can see if you can see anything on here.
Yeah.
But the doctor will tell you right away. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
the obvious ones.
Right.
So the other, so let's move along chronologically.
Yep.
So how you are obviously now not working in healthcare.
Correct.
How did that story start? So was it like, okay, I think the vaccines are experimental, I don't want it, and then they fired you, or
no, you got caught playing roller hockey on the fourth
well,
floor.
obviously. Other than
I wish that would have been such a good way to go.
Yeah.
So how did that evolution kind of start and then end up where you are today?
Well, the evolution started that my hospital was the first hospital to give the first injection in the United States.
Where it physically was? You don't have to tell us what hospital it is, but where exactly?
In New York. Well, we have our system is the biggest private hospital system. So one of the hospitals somewhere in New York, they had a big camera crew come and they were like the first person in.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So what part of the city?
I think that was actually in Long Island, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. And, everyone was like, when are they going to let X-ray techs get it? Because it was nursing and then it was all these other different people and they were like rolling it out to certain departments. And of course, all the X-ray techs are all just disgruntled and they're like, they don't care about us. We're always last in everything. It's like we don't exist. And finally it got to our department and a lot of my coworkers started signing up and they're like, oh, when are you getting yours? And I was like, I'm not, at least yet. And they're like, what do you mean? And I said, well, I've made it this far with my masks, the way I do it. I'm going to hold out and make sure that this is tolerated well. And they were like, you're crazy. I can't believe you'll wait. And I'm like, well, you're the test subject. Thank you for your service, but I'm going to wait. I don't really have that much of a fear over this. I've been paying attention to it. I know how to keep myself safe and I'm good. That was right around the time that I started not caring at all. So my friend was the owner of Max Public House, and him and the other guy, they said we're keeping it open, and Cuomo was like, no, you're in the orange zone. So our governor was going to war with all the small businesses, and I'm a video guy. I do video editing. I have a whole entire wing of stuff that I do through my own company. And I was like, I'm going to document all of this. And then next thing I know, my footage is on Tucker Carlson. The sheriffs are pulling him out of the bar for staying open. And mind you, the orange zone ended 1 block away from his bar. So if you really wanted to get a drink and a burger, you could go 2 blocks over and you can sit down and eat. But his business had to be shut. And, you can't keep small businesses shut without them going bankrupt. It's not a possible thing. It's unless you're a major corporation, and even then they suffer. So at this point, I was like, I'm in this bar all the time, no mask. I have politicians cycling through where we have all these different guests and we're eating and drinking whiskey. It's only a matter of time. But again, I never got it back then. So this is all right around the time the shots started to roll out. And I said I was going to wait. And as I waited and did more and more research, I realized how really survivable this situation is. And I started having that talk with people at work, and they would get really angry. And that was that cognitive dissonance kicking in. I gave them numbers, and they said, these numbers you're saying are all made up. You lived through it. You saw what happened. And I was like, I saw that we were venting people, and we don't really do that anymore. So there's a lot of different things that are turning around for the people that are hospitalized. And they, when I showed them the numbers were from the CDC, that's when things took turns. People would get mad and get angry, and they were like, let's just agree to disagree. And I'm like, well, are you a science denier? Because these numbers are straight from the cdc.gov. It doesn't get any clearer than this. So you have to say, if you're going to argue with me, that you don't believe in the CDC. And, it's where I started to realize that people would do whatever they were told to do. But I still held that line.
Yes, that is the thing that has blown my mind, which is, and I think we discussed this on your show, which was the whole Stanley Milgram experiment, and how, really, in if pressured at all by authority, about 80% of people will just go along. I mean, that's just a given, and probably more. And then you look back at the history of movements, and it's 10 to 20% of people that change the world. And then, once that 20% is solid, then it starts to blossom and get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's why it's so critical that those of us, and I said to May, I said, like, we're considering moving, across the country. I said, there's a point where you have to surround yourself with like-minded people,
That is true.
because that's where the power comes from, where, you get that synergy of people of diverse backgrounds, but similar, philosophies and principles. And that's what makes it go, and that's what I loved about the trucker convoys. Like, all these Native Americans and Indian truckers, Sikhs hanging out with these, white rednecks from Alberta. And I was like, wow, that's powerful. That's really what changes the world.
Yeah, and you know what? If we were able to get up over the border without a vaccine and without getting arrested, there would be people from the U.S. there too. Like, I wanted to be in Ottawa so bad, and my wife was just sitting there, and she was like kind of crying watching the cops just abuse everybody on Saturday. She's like, I feel like we should be there. And I was like, well, we can't be there. This is not here. I get you want to be there, but we can't be there. I was like, we would be held forever as international terrorists. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, but that's the narrative. The narrative from the anti-convoy, and I just read an article, a newspaper article. Of course, it was a guy that used to work for the CBC, which is state-run media.
Yep.
And it's, these guys have been infiltrated. They've been sponsored by foreign actors. It's like this sort of Trumpian dystopia group that funneled money to them and all this. And I'm like, you cannot organize that kind of stuff.
They went to rural Alberta to like Three Hills and found some guy, and infiltrated.
We grew up in Canada. We're educated there. I lived there for 29 years of my life, and it's just like, you don't get Canada.
No.
If it's like, if you hear, and this may get a tiny bit crude, but literally, if there was a bunch of right-wing American money coming to influence these guys, you go, like,
it's like Bob and Doug McKenzie.
We can take care of ourselves, eh? Like, you can fuck all the way off, because like, we got this one. I mean, that's what you would get. And you sit there, and the Canadians are posting this, and I'm like, you don't even get your, like, no, the narrative is that's not the thing.
Yeah, listen, they went as far as saying that honk honk meant Heil Hitler. So at this point, what else are they willing to say? That, like, people are translating car now, and That's the sad part. They're just like, that's what a horn means. It's a sickness. It really is. And I talk about it on my show as it all comes down to the World Economic Forum. They're talking about digital identifications and basically banking at this point while they're freezing people's bank accounts. It's really dark what's going on. It is, and it's so weird to see government officials be just bought off and a part of something that has nothing to do with their people. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have happened. I mean, it wouldn't have happened under. I can't see it happening under any of the other. When did it start? Did it start with Clinton giving away secrets to the Chinese in exchange for campaign donations? I mean, I can't imagine even Nixon doing that kind of stuff. I mean, he still had the balls to actually resign when he knew that he wouldn't have been removed from office. I mean, it's pretty clear he would have been impeached and it would have been horrible, but there wasn't enough evidence to remove him from office, but he still resigned.
Yeah.
And,
Now.
I can't, trying to think of, Kennedy doing something. Are you kidding? Like, he'd just stick his finger in your eye and, find a prostitute and some coke.
Jeez.
Uh,
This podcast is digressing a little.
No,
yes,
I'm
we've
digressing.
totally deviated it. Before it was like, hey, so tell us exactly what happened in the spring of 2020, and then when the vaccines rolled out, and now we're on Kennedy doing
Yes.
cocaine and prostitutes.
Yes, thanks, John. Reel us back
Right,
in
no.
from Tim,
But
please.
but it doesn't mean it's not true. So you say no, mas to the vaccine.
Yeah,
And
well,
then
it got serious in July. I was on vacation and I'm in Florida, and I get a text message from one of my buddies, and he said, "Are you going to the Teams meeting tomorrow where they're going to ask why you guys don't want to take the vaccine?" And I'm like, I'm on vacation and I'm really drunk right now, but I will make a note to go to this. Make sure you send me the link. So I RSVP and I go to this meeting, and it's supposed to be what our concerns are about the vaccine. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to open up a can of whoop ass, and I'm going to break out all the facts. I'm going to use, what's going on in Israel right now. The shot's already in the midst of failing. It's going to happen here once that opportunity arises. And I started to, and they're like, oh, well, there's some evidence that, that could happen. I'm like, there is evidence. It's not that it could, it's going to, and the evidence is real. And they were like, well, we just wanted to run this meeting to find out how to encourage you to become compliant. And I said, so this isn't about hearing what our concerns are. This is literally you giving us a monkey survey and asking us where the line is for us before we'll just comply because we're so upset. And one was, taking away people's ability to be in HR, sponsored events, employee barbecues, and then one was the mandatory PCR test. And I was like, no, you cannot institute a mandatory PCR test because it's completely punitive and coercion. There is no reason somebody that is vaccinated should not have to also submit to a PCR test if you're going to do it, because everyone can carry it. It's known. The CDC knows it. And, none of this makes sense. This is all on July 13th. So HR knew at that point. They put a little tack next to my name, and they kept going, all right, so if we do mandatory PCR tests, you're going to resign. And I was like, I will never resign. You'll pull me out of the building after you beat me down. I was like, I'm never going to leave. You're firing me. I was like, let me make that 100% clear. So, I think it was exactly 40 days later. That was when Cuomo was on TV saying that if you don't get the vaccine, it's going to be, you're going to get terminated by the end of September. And that was that. I'm skipping a really big part. So after that focus meeting on July 13th on Teams, I went viral in the hospital. Only 3 people had the balls to show up to this meeting. I was one of 3, and there was 3 people from HR on it. And I guess one of the pharmacists told another pharmacist who told the world, and now I have PAs showing up, nurses, everywhere I go, people, I heard what you said to HR, and I want to know what we should do. And that it was weird. It was like a Tyler Durden moment. I would walk into the OR to, with my C-arm, and people would be like, they would circle around me and they'd be like, what's next, sir? And I'm like, what do you mean, what's next? So I made a WhatsApp group. This is how it was. So I made a WhatsApp group so we could all start communicating. And then that spread to that bigger hospital at the north site. Overnight, it spread throughout the city. And then, so when they did they officially announced the mandatory PCR tests right before we were going on the bachelorette joint party that we were going to in New Orleans. And it was 48 hours before that. And you can't make this up. So what I'm about to tell you cannot make this up. I had a very slow day. I believe it was August 2nd. And I decided to take what Colin Kaepernick did, that Nike ad where it was like, just do it. It's like, sometimes you have to give up everything just to stand for something.
Uh-huh.
And I made my own version and I put a big X instead of a check. And I said, just don't take it or something like that.
I love it. I love it.
I went to lunch. I came back and all my coworkers are like almost in tears, like, they're doing the mandatory PCR test starting 2 weeks from now. And I was like, all right, guess I'm going to send out that email. And they're like, what email? So that night I emailed the CEO of my hospital system and everyone that was on that mandatory PCR mail. So all of the hierarchy on the top and 30 members of the media. And I said, if I could get one bite on this email, I can start World War III. And I did. New York One picked up the story, and I interviewed via Zoom while I was in New Orleans after the alligator tour. And it aired that night, 10 p.m. So I was out eating at a wonderful restaurant, and we're watching it on the cell phone. And I was like, well, I wonder if I'll have a job when I get back from the bachelor party. And I did, but things started to develop. And any questions so far? Because this is going to get really bizarre.
Keep going.
We are captivated. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
you have no idea where this is going. It's going.
I just like the idea of an alligator tour with a bachelor party because my fertile mind is going in a million different directions how that could end very poorly.
Yeah, well, you feed them marshmallows, and my friend almost got bit because he was trying to hold the marshmallow up, and the guy's like, I can do that. You can't do that. You don't know anything about alligators. He's like, I grew up on a swamp, and you're a city boy. And my friend, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Exactly. Okay, so now the Colin let's little tiny recap. So you email the CEO. I'm not getting vaccinated. And you have this.
I emailed them because this wasn't the vaccination was not mandatory yet. That was still about 3 weeks.
It was the PCR testing.
It was the mandatory PCR testing.
So then you have this WhatsApp group because people are like, yeah, this is ridiculous, et cetera, et cetera. And then you make this kind of meme, shall we say, this advertisement.
Was it?
It's on my Instagram. I guess it could be a meme. So at this point, I would say probably like 600 followers on Instagram. I was like really small. I just did my little Facebook live show when I felt like it. And I was just talking about all of the inconsistencies in the world and with COVID. And so I was probably right around 600 followers. I just threw up this because I just felt like I had time to kill and it'd be fun. Because I wasn't going to budge. I was not going to move. I already knew in my head I would take it to the end. I told my family. And my family was like, no, if they make you take it, you have to take it. And I said, no, I don't. And I was like, I don't know how y'all raised me because I did not follow any of this. Like there is some serious rebel in me. I sometimes question if I'm reincarnated right from the Boston Tea Party. Like this ain't going down. It's just not going down. And they're like, well, what will you do? And I was like, I'll live in a friggin' tent on the corner before I comply. It's never happening. But luckily, that's not what's happening right now. So I do this media interview. I go back in, and now the chief medical officer wants to meet with me.
Of course.
He's willing to talk to me now.
Oh, I thought you were going to say he was going to be raging because you went on TV.
Oh, I'm sure he would have if I ever got the chance to actually meet him. But I decided to prep myself. Once upon a time, I thought about being a lawyer when I was in high school. And then I was like, no, I like partying too much and I hate school. So I didn't do that. So I then went to the family business, if you will. My parents are both X-ray techs, so I followed the path of least resistance back then. But here we are. I'm gonna meet with the chief medical officer. Everyone's like, "That's great." So the first thing I do, come on, take a guess. Either one of you, take a guess.
What you do when you go to meet, you send out the Colin Kaepernick ad to everybody.
That's a good one, but no, I call Project Veritas. And
Oh.
so
yes.
now I'm sitting in the parking lot of my work in the employee parking lot after I clock out. I'm on the phone with Project Veritas, and they're like, "I think this is going to work. We're going to meet you up. We're going to mic you up. We're going to get this all set, and we'll see what this chief medical officer says." And then I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, I can record this on my own. And that way I have more control over what happens with it. And so then I tell Project Veritas that I'm going to do it on my own. So they're like, "Okay, we totally understand it." I then go to Staples and I print out a 700-page book, front and back, of just random reports from VAERS. And then I start highlighting little segments in it. Books like the book you said before, the flu book. It's super big.
Right.
And I pay like $85 to get it all binded up at Staples. And I'm like, I am going to open whoop ass on Thursday. Now, that was on Tuesday, August 15th, right around there, whatever the date was.
Okay.
On August 18th, we decided, because now at this point, I had been in the media. WhatsApp, we outgrew WhatsApp. So now we moved to Telegram, and now it's hundreds of people, hundreds, and more keep entering, because WhatsApp, I think, caps out at like 250.
Huh.
So we have all these people. Now there's people coming in from Florida, from Texas, and it's just spreading across the country. And everyone's like, "John, what do we do next?" And I'm like, holy crap, how did this happen? So I'm just like, listen, we're going to, I said, for the North and South people, North, hold your protest on Monday on lunch break. And then somebody's like, on Wednesday, the CEO is coming here. They're going to be renaming the hospital, the South site. They're going to rename it to something else, whatever, rebrand it. And they're like, the CEO is going to be there. Everyone's going to be there. It's a ribbon cutting ceremony. I'm like, yes, Wednesday. So I put up a little vote. I was like, it's not my choice. It's our choice. Who thinks Wednesday? And everyone's like, Wednesday it is. So now this is, of course, me running it, but I want to be very, 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 very smart about it. So I get my friend Danny Presti, who had Max Public House. I get Scott Lebedo. He's an artist that does all flags around the country. But he's big. He's lives here on Staten Island. He's a big activist in the community. I get John Tobacco, another big activist, and I'm like, started at 11. I go to lunch at noon. That way, plausible deniability. Yeah,
very smart.
Now we're all sitting in the X-ray room, hiding in room 1 because there's no X-rays, and we're watching Instagram Live, and we're like, holy crap! There's a lot of people outside. The whole community showed up. As across the street, they're trying to cut ribbons. They have food and balloons. And at this point, all of the hospitals were starting to fold. So Sloan Kettering folded, NYU folded. They were like, if you're not vaccinated, we're going to fire you. We're adhering to Cuomo's date. But mine didn't at that point. And I that morning, I asked for vacation from now until the day that I'm getting fired. And so I go into the office, and they're like, we're really disturbed that you asked for all this vacation time. Well, why? I'm disturbed that I'm going to get fired. Nobody ever said that. We're a private hospital. We don't have to follow that rule. Nothing was said. And I looked at them and I'm like, you guys are really not following what's happening. You're the last one standing, and it's not going to be much longer. I was right. It was 4 p.m. that day. So it was less than 8 hours.
Oh my gosh.
So the manager and the director were like, even if you get fired, you get all of your personal time and your vacation time. They still pay it out to you, which is a lie. I told them it was a lie, and they still to this day have not paid anyone out in New York. They stole it. All of the companies that terminated us stole our personal and vacation time, which is bananas in itself. So I go outside, and everyone's like, give John the megaphone. Now, this was day one of me giving speeches. I had no idea which would become my life. But so I took the megaphone, and I look over, and there's all these people in the community. All these nurses are screaming. Like yes, the leader is here. And I'm like,
Oh no.
and I'm like, I'm really not. I like at this point, I was like, I don't care if it's just me or if it's all of us. Screw you, ain't fucking taking it. It's not happening. So I give my little speech, and then I during the speech, this is the foreshadowing of how Congress came into it. As we were watching on Instagram Live, we saw someone from the city council, Joe Borelli, and we saw Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, 2 Republicans, and they were walking with us. And I was like, oh my God, the politicians even showed up. This is amazing.
Wow.
And 5 minutes later, I get outside and they're gone. And I was like, what happened to Joe Borelli and Nicole Malliotakis? And they said, well, they were at the ribbon cutting ceremony and they saw there was cameras over here. So they came to stand with us to get photos for the paper. And I was like, photo ops, sons of bitches. So now I'm on the megaphone and I'm like, where are the politicians at? And I was like, you were here and now you're not. And I was like, which is very, very alarming to me. And I was like, seems someone has to take your seat.
Ooh.
That's me now. That was the foreshadowing.
Yeah.
It just came out. I didn't know if it would lead to that, but now I am going for Nicole Malliotakis' seat in the primary. But I don't want to get off track because what happens next is by far the craziest story out of healthcare on Staten Island ever. Okay, so now
Does it have to do with a foreign body in some way?
No, that's nothing. That's nothing.
He put the megaphone up someone's butt.
I'm just envisioning this Life of Brian moment where John walks out and he's like, "I'm not your Messiah."
Wait, no, nothing's gonna beat this. So now everyone's like finishes the speeches. And they're like, let's do a couple of laps around the sidewalks in front of the hospital. And Newsmax comes over to me. So Newsmax, the cable news station, comes over and like, can we do an interview with you? And I said, absolutely. So I go on the lawn. I do about a 5-minute interview with Newsmax. And they're like, well, what are you going to do if you get fired? And I was like, I don't know, independent journalism, something. I was like, I'm going to do something because I'm sick of what's happening. Interview ends. I step off the lawn. And now across the streets of the hospital, it's 4 stories high. And my friend Nick is screaming on the top of his lungs, pointing, going, look, look. And he's like, the sign. And now I see a sign hanging off the telephone pole. And I thought it was like a freedom sign that someone kind of ripped down because it was swinging. And then I realized it says like car for sale on it. And I'm like, I don't get it. What sign? He's like, not the telephone pole, John. Look at the building. And off of the top of the hospital, there was a big banner hanging about 2 stories long that says, we will not comply. It was like Olympus had fallen. And I'm like, oh my God, that's fucking amazing. And now we're all celebrating. And there's so many pictures of me, and the look on my face can only be described as when I opened Nintendo 64 when I was like 12. And I was like, yes, at Christmas time. And now everyone's celebrating, and of course the sign was only there for like 3 minutes or something. They start taking it down and we're all screaming, Kami. Like it was like a mutiny. And now all the community affairs police are sitting there. They're kind of laughing. Everyone's taking video. Now there's people inside the hospital taking pictures and video from inside the hospital, sending it everywhere. And I get back in and my director is standing there. He's like, you wouldn't happen to have been on the roof on the lunch break, did you? And he's kind of laughing as he's saying it. And I was like, I could tell you're joking because you're laughing because it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. And I was like, no, I was outside and it's clear as day. I have about 250 witnesses. And so he's like, good. So now I clock out. It's 4:00. I had no idea that would be the last day I ever was in healthcare. That was on August 18th. And I will explain to you that my next day was a vacation day. And I was supposed to meet the chief medical officer. So I have my big VAERS book ready to go. And I'm like, okay, alarm set for 9:00. I'm going to go to the north site and it's going down. It is going down. And I wake up to a voicemail from my director. And he's like, John, we just want to let you know the meeting with the chief medical officer is canceled. We instead need you to come to here to the south because we have to debrief everybody on the issue with the banner yesterday. So, you're not in trouble. This isn't a disciplinary hearing.
Oh, yeah, right.
You just have to come in so we can get your statement so we can put it to bed and we'll reschedule the chief medical officer meeting. And I'm like, oh, they're never going to let me speak to this guy, but okay, I'll come in. So I get in and they're like, it's probably best if you bring a union rep. I'm like, yeah, duh. I'm a delegate as it is. And I know the steps here, but I kind of knew what they were going to play. So I reached out to my friend who's a criminal defense lawyer. And I was like, I'm CCing you on the emails because I really want to scare them. So I said, I've put in, being that, this was mentioned in passing to everybody, that this is actually trespassing crime and it can be prosecuted by the NYPD. I would like to have a lawyer in on this as well in case any funny business happens. So I get there, we all go head up to the front, and I meet with the head of security. And this was the most craziest meeting. Actually, no, there was one that surpasses it, but we'll get to that. This guy goes on about minute 5.5, 6. We have 2 people that chased you on the roof of the building. You evaded them by pulling maneuvers and jumping over air conditioner units. I don't know if you're familiar with the roof. And I'm looking at him like, I'm a CAT scan tech. No, I'm not familiar with the roof of the hospital, you psychopath. And then I look at him and was like, and he's like, I want to let you know, I was a community affairs officer for 25 years. And I'm like, okay, well, then you really were probably bad at your job because there was about 250 people that can tell you I was outside when that banner fell. Also was being interviewed on national television. Like, we're playing the dumbest game I've ever played in my life. And now my anger's kicking. So I'm stepping it up. And I'm like, sir, the story you've told me is the dumbest thing that I've ever heard. I said, not only was I outside, but I had to find a way to somehow subvert every camera that the hospital has, gain access without going through the lobby. So anyway, 2 weeks goes by. They have me suspended without pay. They call me in and they fire me. They terminate me for the banner. At this point, I've been interviewed by CNN, MSNBC, the whole nine. And let me tell you, having an interview on MSNBC is like the wild, wild west. It was 45 minutes, and all they used of me was saying, I don't believe the vaccination works, because I totally destroyed Yasmin, whoever she is on MSNBC, destroyed her to the point where she kept going, did you vote for Trump? Did you vote for Trump? And I'm like, are we talking about a vaccine right now or Donald Trump? What does one have to do with the other? And then we really went at it. And it just shows how crazy the media is and the derangement syndrome that they suffer from. And she's like, she was like, I'm a journalist and I can ask whatever question I want. I said, that's great. I'll tell you who I voted for. And she's like, great. Who would you vote for? I was like, who did you vote for? You tell me first. I'll tell you mine. And then she said, you can't ask that. I said, I'm the journalist. I said, well, and I said, well, I identify as an independent journalist now. And she goes, you're an out of work X-ray tech. And then she kind of stormed off. That's MSNBC for you.
Talk about like arrogance. Well, I'm not surprised.
And then this buzzing sound emanated from her backside because she moved and flicked the switch. No, all right,
buzzing or just hissing.
Yeah. No, it's wow. Okay, so now you have no job.
So of course they get you on the banner, which wasn't even. It was just.
Well, they just made that up.
Yeah.
Clearly,
well, there was a banner. That's for sure.
Well,
but
let's just say I know this scenario very well. That's all I can say publicly. But
okay.
But
we both do.
Yes, we know this scenario very well. But yeah, they just wanted you out of there because
I won. That's the problem for them. They had to pay me back 6 weeks of pay. I ended up getting everything down to written statements from Newsmax, down to I found somebody that was on Instagram Live, happened to save the video, and he's talking to me about 15 seconds before he crosses the street, and you see the banner go flying off, and you see me in the background with Newsmax.
Right.
And they were like, oh, shit, we have to pay him. But they waited until the deadline to reinstate me. So they hired me again on Friday. And then the following Friday, they fired me again. And I never went back in that building. It just never happened. But that hearing with the union, I actually, because, if you push me too much, I could be a very sarcastic ass. And I showed up with a big poster board. And I said, here's the lineup, guys. You have Superman. I had them on the actual lineup with like 6 feet tall. And I was like, you have Jack Bauer, Spider-Man. And then you have John the CAT scan tech, who you have now pinned on I somehow accessed the building. I said, your lieutenants that said that they saw me and they vouched for it on the security team saw me leave. I have time-stamped photos that I was still there 5 minutes after they saw me leave. So now they're lying. I was like, your whole case is beat. It's done. It's garbage. And then we started cursing each other out. It was hysterical.
Yeah, it gets
But
horrible. But you didn't comply. They wanted you out. It's just for them cleansing of the herd for them.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what you're not obviously you're doing journalism now.
Yep.
So how did you land what your gig that you have right now, and tell us a little bit about TNT? And I mean, I really enjoyed my time with you when we spent an hour together. It's a really cool format where you actually can talk to somebody for a while.
Yeah.
Tell us all about that.
So right after the banner came down and I was on Newsmax, I was threatening to sue the hell out of the hospital, and I had a station from Australia reach out to interview me, and I stayed. We BS'd for about 40 minutes, and only like 10 or 12 minutes were for the interview. And the guy was like, you talk well enough. If you want to be in journalism, there's definitely an avenue for you. So that was in August. And that guy reached out to me in December, and the rest is history. He was like, "We want you on TNT Radio." I thought about it once we were putting this all together, and I think that you'd be a great fit. I know you know how to talk for a while, sometimes too much. So this is great. And that was it. I was literally laying on my couch. It was the day after I stopped having major symptoms of COVID, and I Skyped with him, and that was it. So I started the radio show right when I got back. And I would say it was right around, I think I started on MLK Day. So yeah, I went on vacation right around January 9th or 10th. And then I got back, and that was it. Started it. But yeah, when it comes back to independent journalism, that all really took off when I started doing this hybrid activism and journalism. I realized there's a lot of independent journalists around that put up clips as they go. So I started making music videos and like these docu-cuts, I call them. Like they're like documentaries, but they're small, of each protest and march we were doing around Manhattan to show everybody. I would set it to music because I do video editing, and I tape all the footage myself for the most part. Now I have multiple cameras. I have everyone helping me. I have my friends, my wife. I'm like, okay, well, if I'm speaking and I'm up there, you guys have to be the camera people. And I put it all together. And that following that was at 700 in July or in August, when I put up that Colin Kaepernick type of post, is now at 17,300 plus. So I've gone through an explosion of follows, if you will, on Instagram.
So you have another project, which is running for Congress, correct?
Oh, that's correct. Yeah.
Ooh, tell us.
So how do you do that? Like, you just go, okay, I'm running for Congress. I'm going to jump into the primary and
pretty much. I decided to do it, and then like the first or second day of January, I filed and made it official. And you still have to get all the signatures on the petitions to get you on the ballot. But I am fully registered. I am in the race. I met with the Republican Party here on Staten Island, and they were like not happy because we have an incumbent, Nicole Maliotakis, who's worked with them for forever. Hence the career politician portion of what I refer to her as. And I understand that that's what they want, but there's a lot of people here that do not like the job Nicole's doing, and all the politicians aren't the ones standing up; it's the people. And I said, we need real people. And you have people like, Ian Smith that are running now, like big time activists, kept his gym open and all that in Jersey. And I was like, this is what we need here. If no one else is running, I'm the guy. I'll do it. I don't care. Let's do it. And I was like, well, she's got all the money. She's got over $2 million she's sitting on right now. I'm sitting on a whopping $1,500. And I think that doesn't matter to me as much as anybody would think prior to this, because people being awake and angry is worth more than having $2 million in the bank, because there's a lot of people that do not like her right now. And they held a big rally at the Staten Island Republican headquarters, and it was a bloodbath. The parents all showed up. It was about getting masks off children, and I've been fighting side by side with them, even though I don't have a kid. I've been holding their protests for them, bringing the sound system. I've been doing all this stuff with them, and never once did these politicians show up. And then they show up this President's Day, and they're like, first of all, I think one of the guys was talking about me. He was like, I'm not a professional activist, so I can't be at all these things. So I'm like, oh, here they go, because they all hate me, and I'm the outsider. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is funny. Okay, way to try to take a zing at me. Good try, little guy. And then the next one comes up, and he introduced Nicole. And so now Nicole comes up, and everyone in the crowd starts chanting RINO at her, and everyone's telling her,
Oh
like,
gosh.
you can tell she's like so shook. And then as she finally gets everyone to calm down so she could start to speak, someone screams out, "John Matland for Congress!" all the kids, all the parents have stickers with my face on it. It says John Matland for Congress. And I'm like, now she knows it's real. Now she knows it's real. She's ignoring me. She'll ignore me until I officially get on the ballot. And I get that. That's pure politic tactic, but I get it. But it's going down.
I
So is
love
there
this.
just
You know, I always said politicians, I should have term limits, but politicians and pastors should be real people that have had real jobs that can relate to everybody they're talking to. So, you know, the career, I have a thing with career pastors or ministers. I mean, because, you know, it's easy to say, do as I say, not as I do, but they're not in the real world. I think there's a season for it. And politics as well. I mean, I think that it's wonderful to have someone who's had years of experience advise, but to be in there and not be in the real world and
I agree.
understand the people and represent the people.
Well, that was what it was supposed to be.
That's what it was supposed to
It's
be.
supposed to be citizen representation,
so,
right?
Yay.
I mean,
correct.
I would vote for you if I could vote.
So
in New
how
York.
many folks?
I haven't even made a pitch yet.
So I was gonna say what's the timeline for when's the election and what's the
the election's June 28th. I have to get on the ballot first, and
Yes,
the ballot petition signing is in March, so it's all
Okay.
of March. And the exact dates, it might be like March 2nd. I am working with some people that know some things. I'm going to get the ballots that we have to do, the petitions. I have to get them printed up, so I'm ready to rock and roll with that. She will challenge every signature I get, so they go to court and they try to find ways to go, oh, we could get this one off. Oh, we could get this one off. But I will have pristine copies of each paper that I've submitted. So if they start making marks on the papers or anything like that, we will know. It's still going to be tough. Don't get me wrong. I have to get like 1,400 signatures in a month, and it's going to be tough. I don't have the $2 million. I don't have the street team. I'm not paying anyone. I am the entire campaign. I have people that want to walk around and help me get them. So it's gonna be rough, but I think I'm gonna pull it off. And honestly, I think if I get on that ballot, I think Donald Trump's gonna endorse me. That's my belief. But they don't really get along. They don't play well in the sandbox. You know, there's footage out there of Nicole saying that she doesn't really like Trump. She can't name one good thing he's doing. Back when he was first put in office, she said she wished she didn't vote for him. So. And then when she did the infrastructure bill, everyone was really pissed off at her too. And when you have Donald Trump was pissed off at her, and it was like, oh, they mended the fences. It's because she was the only option at that point. And then a new foe entered the race.
So
wow, from X-ray tech, foreign body reader to politics. What a transition this is. I mean, this is amazing.
But it's amazing. But this is interesting because it's wonderful. It's a wonderful connection to, you know, when we interviewed the Milhones. It's amazing what courage does.
Yeah.
I mean, this is all about courage. And if there's anything that this podcast can do, I just hope that it helps people be courageous. It's because there was tons and tons, hundreds of people, thousands of people that you had networked with that believed what you believed, but yet they weren't necessarily willing to really stand up.
Because, well, they're afraid. They don't see any other option. They don't see, there's no hope. They just think doom and gloom, and they're motivated by fear. And we always talk about this. When you're paralyzed and by fear and controlled by fear, you're so limited. Your life can't be meant to be, so much bigger and better in ways you can't even imagine or dream. And it's crap that you go through that opens the doors to bigger and better things. Sometimes it's hard to imagine. So, I mean, It's not that we all have to have crap happen to have a fulfilling life, but
But
funny how
but-
usually that's the way it is.
but we do.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
you know, Moses was put in the little reed basket and floated off and ended up being adopted by Pharaoh. I mean, that's just kind of how life is, you know. And so it's super encouraging to be able to you know, meet people like you, meet people that are courageous,
stand up for what they believe.
right? Like even if you believe something on the other side, at least if it's consistent and logical and you're living by your convictions, instead it like, you know, we could go on and on about all this stuff about how like this just these gigantic money concerns that all seem to have connections to China are what are pushing all of these like ridiculous narratives. Like, and that just drives me nuts.
Yeah, well, again, when it comes back to politics, the moment that really locked me in on this run where I was like, I have to do this, they announced that, you know, the city workers were out of work effective November 1st. And it's comply or submit your religious exemption and we'll see what happens. But, you know, at this point, they already had stopped picking up garbage for a week on all of the 5 boroughs, specifically in Staten Island. And there was just trash gathering all over the street. And this was their protest. They were like, you don't want the sanitation department? Good. Now we're not touching any of the garbage. And everyone was celebrating them. They were like, yes, let the garbage run the streets. And now November 1st came. And again, at this point, I didn't have TNT radio. And I would stay up editing stuff for Instagram till 5 a.m. and I would just sleep till like 11:30. And I'm like, all right, what am I going to do today? I was trying to figure out my path. And I get a call from my friend Danny, and he's like, John, I've been calling you. You got to stop putting your phone on Do Not Disturb. I was like, nobody disturbs my sleep. But he's like, he's like, I'm at the sanitation department. I'm gonna swing by, pick you up. He's like, there's about 100 people out here. So we go back, and I'm standing out there, and you know, like I'm like talking to everybody, and they were like, we don't know what to do next. We were blocking the trucks, but they said they were going to arrest us. We weren't going to let them out. So I'm like, why don't we have another protest? So we all agree that at 6:30 we're all going to meet up, have a protest. So we meet back up at 6:30 or 6 o'clock, whatever it was, and I bring the speaker with me that I keep wheeling everywhere. And it's like an actual PA system that has a battery, so it's fantastic. So we all give our little rah-rah speeches, and we were like, we're not letting the trucks out tonight. Like, that's it. There is no sanitation department tonight. This is how we protest. So they start opening. They're like, we start talking to NYPD legal, and they're like, well, if you have one of the driveways open, then we can't really arrest you. I'm like, so we could do like a ping pong. We could let the trucks all gather at one and then keep that one open. When they try to redirect, then we close that driveway. And we have, there was like 250 people there. It was a lot of people. Everyone's all riled up. A lot of city workers. The teachers all had just lost their job not too long ago. And now it's coming for everyone. And I'm on the speaker, and we were doing like, it was like that moment that they could put in a movie for me. I had the microphone, and I'm talking to the strategic response group that they ended up sending with all the zip ties. They have all the paddy wagons out, and the cops were like, we're not really going to arrest you per se, but you don't know what's going to happen. Well, what ended up happening is Bill de Blasio himself sent the strategic response group, the riot squad, to take us down, to make a point. That's what the cops ended up telling us, because they were like, we don't want to do this either. So let me get there, though. So my friend Danny's blocking the truck. He's like basically squared off with a garbage truck. And I'm like telling everybody, if they're at a stop sign, they don't have a stop light, which means it's always active. They have to yield to pedestrians. So I had everyone walking back and forth. So now there's about 120 people, and they'd get to one side and they turn around and just start walking. And we're blasting Muse, and it's like, they will not force us. And I'm on the mic, and I'm like, stand down. And it was this big theatrical thing. And there's hundreds of people watching. People were taking the video and like posting our New York Freedom Rally. That got almost 100,000 views. And we're just like, I have no idea what's really going on. There's all these different photographers there. All of a sudden they take Danny down, they zip tie him, and they put him in the truck. Because he wouldn't walk. He was like, I'm not going to walk. I am squaring off with this machine until you take me. It's not leaving. And I was like, okay, we had walkie talkies. I'm like, open the back driveway. And I'm yelling at the cops. I'm like, the back driveway is open. You cannot stop us. We are using the crosswalk. So the cops didn't know what to do as we're fighting back and forth. And then all of a sudden, they start coming in, and it's just like they did in Canada, like the move back, and they're kind of pushing everybody. And now the truck's edging up behind them. And I turned around. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have to get arrested tonight. It's happening. The first time I'm ever going to get arrested. So I go over to my wife and like, take my backpack, take all this. So she goes, please don't. And the tears are coming. I was like, I'm sorry. I must. And that was it. I jumped right in front of the truck, and I held my flag that I designed, and it says "Join or Die." It's a mashup of the Sons of Liberty rebel colors, the red and white vertical stripes. The Benjamin Franklin segmented snake is in 50. There's a whole story behind it. We call it the Sons and Daughters of Liberty flag, and I have that flag, and I'm holding it in front, blocking their view, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, why aren't they taking me down? And all the cops are staring at me, and they're just like, are we supposed to arrest him? And now, and I'm like,
it's not what he really wants.
I was like, I guess the moment passed. So I turned around, I start waving the flag, and all of a sudden, like, this one guy jumped on top of me, and he's like, he grabs my arm, and he's pulling one way and pushing the other. So he thinks that I'm resisting, and he starts screaming, stop resisting. And I looked at him like, dude, you're fighting yourself. I was like, I knew when I went in front of the truck, you were going to take me. I was like, come on, man, just arrest me. But no one realized I have a body cam on. So now another cop's like, they're all trying to figure, like, let's take off the knapsack. And I still had the knapsack on. That's right, I did. So they took that off, and now the body cam falls off, and it lands face up. So you can see all the cops zip tying my hands in night vision. You couldn't have made this any better. I was like, if this is the only reason I bought this body cam, it's perfect. And then the cop picks up and looks right at it and goes, hey, you dropped your body cam to the other cop. Goes, that's not mine. That's the perp's. And I was like, oh, now I'm the perp. It was wild. We got taken to the station, and all the cops were thanking us for what we did. One cop was almost crying. She was like, BLM was burning our cars to the ground. We couldn't do anything. And now we have people that are out there fighting for what's right and fighting for us to keep our jobs, and we're arresting them. They had to take my shoelaces, my string off of my sweatpants.
Yeah, of course.
I said I wasn't going to Epstein myself. You could let me keep it. But, they took it.
Wow.
No, that's just mind-blowing. Unbelievable.
You're a rebel with the cause.
But that's exactly it. But it's unbelievably encouraging. Like, this is great. Like, in the last hour and 10 minutes, we went from, scared to death of COVID, working as an X-ray tech, to citizen journalist / activist, to international radio talk show host, to running for Congress. So yeah. This is fantastic.
Yeah, it's a hell of a ride.
Stories, and an amazing storyteller too.
Yeah, you're a great storyteller.
Yes.
Oh, I've heard that before. That once upon a time I did want to be an actor, and then that just never became a thing.
Well, that's because your parents were X-ray
too.
technologists and not a movie studio attorneys.
Correct. I mean, I know the listeners can't see, but that's the flag right there. Oh.
Ooh, it's.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I get it. That's really amazing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So where can we find you? How can our listeners support you?
Where can we send donations and find you? Yes.
Yeah, it's John Matland for Congress. That's JOHN MATLAND for Congress.com, and for is spelled out FOR. So yeah, if every listener donated $1, that would be $1 more that I can take on the RINO, because it's RINO season here in New York. Following me on Instagram, same thing, John Matland for Congress. The big independent journalism page is We the People Are the News, but you have to spell it all out, because if you don't, I don't appear. It's the shadow ban. I am very heavily shadow banned, but I have not one strike against my account. So go figure.
We could put that in the show notes. I can link it.
Yeah, we'll link all of this stuff in our show notes for sure.
And I mean, I told you the whole story, but I didn't tell you that I started my own company in October, which was making these flags, T-shirts, and all of that. So we have that apparel brand and flag brand. We actually just got our first order from Canada the other day, and we sent out one of these flags. And that is sonsanddaughtersofliberty.world. And that's where you can find
link
me.
that as well.
No,
that'd
absolutely.
Be great.
That's
Thank you
awesome.
guys.
Yeah, you bet. Well, this has just been, I mean, we could do Rogan style where we smoke the peace pipe and do this for 3 hours.
We definitely will be following you, and I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, and we'd love to have you back if that works out for you.
Absolutely.
This has
been great.
Yeah, really enjoyable.
Maybe an episode where we could just talk about fun things we've seen on X-ray.
Yeah,
people like that kind of stuff. Our listeners and our friends, they're always begging. Tell me about the worst thing you've ever seen or done. I don't know. People eat that stuff up if they're not medical.
Just real fast. When I was 19 and it was my first year of X-ray school, I was at the hospital and the tech said, "What do we have here?" And he points to the X-ray, and I said, "Well, that's clearly something up somebody's butt." And he's like, but he goes, what is it? And I'm like, and I was like, clearly it's an object for some sort of pleasure of the butt. And the person goes, but what do you notice about it? I'm like, I don't know what you're getting. And he goes, look at the borders. They're blurry.
My gosh.
It was still on. It was lost and it was still on.
Lots of good. Yes, because X-ray is, there's no audio to go along with it. Yeah. So
I'll do the audio.
Is it?
I can do the audio.
So that was a fun one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
All righty. Thanks so much again. And
thank you guys so much.
We will send everybody your way, link everything in our social media pages as well. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you. So fun. And I hope we see each other soon.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.
You too.
That was great. We could have talked to John for hours and hours. We could have literally done a Joe Rogan-esque. We've just crested the 3.5 hour mark.
No kidding.
Super engaging guy.
He's super energetic, and he likes to talk as much as you.
Yeah, and I met him.
But he tells a great story.
Yeah, he tells a great story. I met him through his online radio show with TNT, which is Today's News Talk.
Oh, and so I guess people could tune in and hear you there on his show.
You could, and you could also tune in there, and he has great guests. And he's great at his craft, obviously. And we'll have everything linked in the show notes, how you can support him. Because now he's apparently rhino hunting, which I love that.
I love it.
That was great. Okay, May, what do you got for us?
Don't forget to reach out to Michael Relvis again at MR Insurance, where their goal is to assist physicians in obtaining the most comprehensive coverage available to fit their unique situation. Reach out for both excellent and quality service at bsfreemd.com/MR Insurance.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll see you all next week.
See you next week.
It's no secret that medicine is a bit, uptight. That's why Tim and I created BS Free MD, to mix things up a little and have fun in the process. Besides, we are having these exact same discussions all the time, so we thought we might as well invite everyone to the party. If you really like us, you can get plenty more and maybe see one of Tim's cool tattoos on our Instagram or Facebook pages at BS Free MD. See you next time.
While we try to keep BS Free MD as raw and real as possible, we can't be held responsible for any medical decisions or discussions had as a result of what you've heard on the show. We know, bummer. But the truth is, we really do care about your questions. So feel free to reach out to us by email at doc@bsfreemd.com.